One. Hi guys, my name is Lauren Hollows, and I am lucky enough to be here today with Mark Miles. Mark has been with us a few times before, but today I am going to be interviewing him on his brand new book, Creating Transformation. Oh, sorry, my thing's doing it. You can see his book down there, and of course we will have a link down below. Mark, congratulations, and thank you very much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Absolute pleasure to be here with you. And yeah, very proud moment to have the book done, as I think you and I talked about maybe 12 months ago, or even 9 or 10 months ago. But yeah, it's a real sort of weird feeling to go, it's tangibly in my hands, it's done. It's not just gone, stuck in my brain. It's actually out there. I can touch it, I can feel it, and it's out there in the big wide world. People are reading my ideas. So pretty full on.
Very cool. Now, so tell me a little bit about, because I know that you've had this idea for a long time. You and I have talked about it a few times, and you really did want this to be like, it's very much like a hands-on, tangible sort of a guide for advanced trainers. But like for people who haven't maybe looked at it or seen it before, give them kind of an overview of how this came about and sort of what's the key takeaway from this book.
So many takeaways, but basically it all was birthed out of the idea of legacy. Now, I guess for me, I want to have something I can leave behind to the industry. And a lot of people come through my courses, they learn a lot, they get wowed, they get inspired, and they want to go off and use what I teach them, of course. But I kind of wrote this for the people that don't have the access or privilege to go through my courses and actually come across my content. As we may have talked about previously, I've been teaching a TA since 2013 now. And so I've kind of been around the traps. But for me, I do bring a very different angle. I was an English as a second language teacher for a very long time in Japan. So I really have that strong sense of communication and how do we actually teach and how do we help people develop skills. So that all came about from studying linguistics and speaking Japanese myself and doing a master's of applied linguistics and all that fun academic stuff. But also I came back to Australia and started teaching at a university on the Gold Coast, but I thought, I'd love to become a corporate trainer. I want to have a bigger impact on the world and change lives. And it's been a bit of a theme in my life, I guess. But went off and did my TAA at TAFE, and I came away from TAFE, and not necessarily TAFE, but I came away from that going, there's a lot of things that were kind of missing in the TAE at that time, or the TAA, and I just thought, there's something missing. And also around that time, actually, when I went through a breakup, strangely enough, and someone said to me, it was a bit of she was a life coach at the time. She gave me a ticket to a seminar. And the seminar was called Breakthrough to Success. It doesn't exist anymore. But at that seminar, I think it was a 3-day event, I saw some people doing things from stage that really inspired me. It really showed me what was possible in regards to influencing an audience and training large groups at that time. And it got me inspired so much that I went off and learned some public speaking skills. And I looked to think, okay, possibly could we teach these public speaking skills, these confidence, these skills, these engagement skills to trainers that really, they came out of TA, but they were really not the teaching skills, but also how to really engage audiences effectively. And I really saw that as a bit of a gap, and that gap grew bigger and bigger in my mind, so to speak. And I thought, there's a need for this. And so over, I guess, the years, I was like starting to get very curious. And that's one of the big takeaways of the book, curiosity. I started to get curious. How do we help people learn even faster? And what are the stumbling blocks to people learning? And essentially, how do we create an environment where people really feel included? There's that empathetic connection with the learners. And just how do we help the trainer be the very best version of themselves when they're standing in front of a group? And I guess that would be the key takeaways there.
I mean, there's been a feedback for so many years that with the TAE is like kind of this first step course, but there is not like it takes a lot to really be an engaging trainer, and there's so many different versions of training. The way that you relate to people, if you're doing it through a medium like this versus if you're doing it with them in person. And one of the things that I was really happy about when I opened up the book and saw that the first thing that you were starting with was understanding your audience and understanding the people that you're addressing, I was like, yes, that's awesome, because that's a huge part of what we do at NOI is we build for a particular avatar. So, you cannot design the same assessment for, a business person with 10 years experience as you can for a job seeker who's never worked in the industry before, for a, international student that doesn't have any context of the Australian work environment. And you take that, I guess, probably you take that to the next level. I mean, obviously at NOI, we design resources, and then your book talks about how you then go about even further contextualizing and delivering those. And the first part of that is obviously understanding your audience and breaking that down into all of those different facets. You gave a whole range of techniques as to kind of how you do that, but I was really interested to find out kind of like why you started with that particular component. Like you see a lot of people talking about training, and the first thing they talk about is how they present themselves, and it's like me. And your first thing was like, right, first thing up, guys, who are you actually talking to? Let's think about who we're dealing with. Talk to the audience a little bit more about that and why that was important to you as a starting point.
Yeah, so again, I'm going to link it back to the very first public speaking course I went through, which was when we're talking about getting over your nerves and also delivering in the best way possible, we were actually taught a mantra, and we all sang it, all 200 people in the room. It's not about me, it's all about them and how they need to hear it so they can achieve it. It's not about me, it's all about them and how they need to hear it so they can achieve it. Over and over and over and over again, it was just drilled into us. Then when I got further into the world of coaching and training TAE trainers, which I've done for a long time, and also being around the training world, we all know instinctively when we're sitting in a training room, is the person in front of us speaking about themselves, focused on themselves, or are they really focused on the audience? And just over time, when I looked at, there's kind of like the great divide. There are people that are able to be really present for their audience and really care about the audience and go, no, it's not about me and my war stories. It's not about what I've achieved. It's about what you guys are going to achieve, what's possible for you. And I just noticed that there was that clear distinction. There's two groups in the world of training. It's all about me or it's all about them. And so for me, I just really wanted to encourage people to start thinking about who are you talking to and what do they really want to get from you, as opposed to, what are you trying to get out of your audience? And are you just doing it because, you just want to make a dollar while, you're just standing up, you got nothing else to do and just standing there talking about how awesome you are. So for me, that was really important that I set that tone in the book, because if you get that right, then that's the launch pad for success.
Yeah. And I think it is, it's one of those things that it can be very difficult to kind of know. I don't think we communicate well enough to our trainers who they're actually training to. I know, whenever we deliver training and things like that, the first sort of questions I ask is like, okay, well, who are you actually dealing with? Like, are we talking about, delivering to millennials? Are we talking about delivering to people in their 40s who have got a lot of workplace experience? Are we delivering to moms who are trying to return to work? And, each of those audiences is going to there's going to be different things that we're going to need to do in order to click and connect with them. And I think that for a lot of trainers out there, stepping into a classroom, a lot of trainers step into a classroom with literally no idea of who the cohort is that they're going to be dealing with. And even just having kind of that basic knowledge, and it's supposed to be in your TAS, there's literally legal requirements to be able to know who your cohort is. So there should be documentation around for trainers to be able to know this stuff before they walk in. But even once you then walk in and you go, okay, so this is kind of the group that I'm going to be dealing with, and this is who I'm going to be planning to train to, then starting to break down and look at all of the different ways that those interactions are going to fall out and what are the challenges. I noticed one of the things that you put in there, and I can't remember if this is the right word for it, but you kind of talked about their experience in education, and I get their attitude towards education, and I think that that's Like that's just such a crucial thing. Are you walking into an audience that is open to learning, or are you walking into an audience that is going to take a step into that classroom or that learning environment and be defensive from
Yeah.
the moment that you walk in?
Yeah.
And how you then go about structuring your icebreakers and all of that sort of stuff, that's going to have a huge impact on those sorts of things. There are 2 or 3 of those facets that you think are more important than the others. Does everything sort of play, does everything sort of play an equal role?
I think one of the things I love to share is in the book, I talk about the think, feel, do model. And I kind of think if a trainer really wants to make an impact, they need to really think about currently, what does my audience think, feel, and do about the topic? So if I'm going to talk about any topic at all, maybe it's flower arranging. What do they currently think about flower arranging? What do they currently do about the flower arranging? What do they currently believe about it? Then I list that out, and then I want to think about, okay, what's the future? What do I want to actually get them to think, feel, and do about the topic? Do I want them to think that it's easier than they thought? Do I want them to think a particular thought? What do I want them to do as a result of going through my workshop? What do I want them to think, feel about the topic, and do about it? And when I actually map that out, again, what are we doing? We're creating that map to the transformation. And we're also thinking about what I want them to know and what I want them to do. Because we find a lot in training that we overestimate what our audience will remember, and we overestimate what we can actually achieve in the time frame. So I really like to dial trainers back to think, okay, if you were delivering a 1-day session or even a 60-minute session or a 90-minute session, whatever it is, what is the one thing that you would want your audience to walk away and remember no matter what? It's the one thing. And also, what's the one new task or the one new action that you would love them to take as a result of attending your session? And if we can dial it back to, all right, what they currently think, feel, do, what do you want them to be thinking, feeling, doing? What do you want them to remember? And what do you want them to go out and do? It really is a systematic approach to make sure that the focus is always on the audience, and all the words that we say are always going to be aligned to the think, feel, do of the future. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. And I mean, it brings up another important point of just the importance of actually even thinking and considering about that, and the idea of actually planning and considering your content. The amount of times that we'll kind of look at, delivering training with trainers, and we'll talk to them about their units, and, we'll mention something and they'll go, what? I'll go, well, like how you got to do this in the year. And they're like, huh? I'm like, okay, let's step back.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that is, I mean, like it is like it's a skill like everything else. And one of the things that the book does is it starts to like pull things out and go, right, guys, like it is a skill. You can't just go in there and, you can't just go and talk. You can't just go and follow a plan. Like there's a whole bunch of other things that we need to consider in order to really actually engage with these particular people. Once you've engaged with them, you're then going to go through the process of, building, actually build, like, or at least giving them the opportunity to build. And, knowing how to better relate to them is only going to increase that sort of thing. Just, I know you've had a lot of feedback on the book so far, and the book is actually structured. It's a workbook. In many, like in the most practical sense, because after every section, you've got questions that they can reflect on, you've got activities that they can do and everything like that. What has the feedback been from, from people, from trainers that have been doing these in class? What have they found interesting? What have they found? Have they found anything challenging?
So to date, and I think after this interview, I will have officially sold 50 copies. So very exciting, and the sales are building. For me, the feedback has been great. Like people have really loved the activities, and if I'm completely honest, like my editor said, put in the activities. I'm like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to. But in the end, putting them in, everyone seemed to love the activities. And I guess my hesitation was I didn't want it to become too much of like a childish book or anything like that. But on the flip side, it seems like people have really engaged. People have really liked the activities there. And it's been awesome to like have people brand new to training who have only ever run 2 or 3 workshops or presentations in their lives come across the book and go, wow, there's so much more to learn. Then I've had people that have been in the industry longer than I have, like 20 years, and go, wow, I'm still learning so much from it. And I think it's because maybe I just took a very different angle on it. I took a very streetwise angle. I said, essentially, I looked at what are all the core skills that an advanced trainer needs, and what are the ways that I potentially approach things that other people don't, and why is it I get particular results and consistent feedback where every single day I get things on my e-box saying, loved your training, it was amazing, and I got so much from it. And I'm like, I always like to step back and go, why was that the case? What am I doing that's different? And I think when I wrote the book, I basically just thought, okay, what skills does someone need? All right, they need the ability to do this, this, and this, and this. I just started out with sticky notes, and I just wrote down all the skills that someone needs. And I just wrote a chapter on it, another chapter, and then put all the chapters together in a particular order. And that's kind of how it came together. And it really was birthed out of, okay, if someone goes through my workshop, what are they learning? Well, they're going to learn how to get over your nervousness. They're going to learn voice management. And maintenance. They're going to learn how do you engage an audience. They're going to learn the phrases to say. And so it really is an absolute manual on how to be a comprehensive trainer. And certainly, yes, there'll be another book coming, but it was kind of like the one-stop shop on all you need and all the things that I thought were kind of missing from the average TAE out there.
Yeah. And I think that that's why the activities are good, because ultimately this is about building, I mean, at least the way that I read the book is it's about building the actual skills of the person who's reading the book. So if the focus is on building the skills of that particular trainer, then ultimately it gives them tools and ways to kind of self-gauge and go through and be like, okay, right, now I'll put that into practice. And how do I put that into practice? And I think for a lot of people, they do struggle with kind of that abstract concept of, well, how do I do this versus, okay, but now I'm actually going to go and do this. So, how do we translate the describing the knowledge to the actual doing? So I think that's why I think the activities kind of lead people through those sorts of things. Right. Well, this is probably a good place to stop because I have another question for you next, but I'm sure that that's going to go for more than 10 minutes. So guys, if you have not gone and picked it up, Mark, I believe they can get this on Amazon. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so there's Amazon. You can also go to LinkedIn, and we'll have Mark's LinkedIn and his YouTube below. And there are links on where you can buy the book for both of those as well. I hope you guys have enjoyed this first section. Don't worry, we've got 2 more to come. So make sure that you do come back for parts 2 and 3 with Mark Miles. My name is Lauren Hollows for NOI Education Services.